Can you dive deeper into HRV? It always confuses me. I want to know what it is, and you said higher is better. If you
Yep.
can go a little deeper into it.
Sure. Good question. Let's jump over to the whiteboard. All right. So let's look at it. You're a runner, Niraj, right? So let's look at it from a running perspective. If we do this, so this would be time down here, and this would be heart rate. Right, so if you were running a race, right, and if this is time 0, you know, you've got a change colors here. You've got, say, a resting heart rate, we'll call, okay, or this is 0. We'll say this is pre-0, and then 0 would be where the gun goes off. Okay, so you've got, say, a resting heart rate that's maybe climbing because you're anticipating the gun going off, right? Gun goes off and you start running, okay, and you get up to some speed, and then, you know, in the context of a longer race, you're pretty much doing this, right, until the end. It'd probably look like that a little bit. So really, the only demand put on the heart is from here to here, okay? Whereas if we did the same thing, and I'll just use a different color up here. If we do the same thing and it's interval sprints, okay, gun goes off and we're going here, here, okay, more like this. So we're sprinting, resting, sprinting, resting, and it would be more slanted, sorry, you know, because you're going from speed to rest, but it looks more like that. So if you look at heart rate variability, you know, you've probably heard of marathoners that died of a heart attack, right? And people say, well, the guy ran a marathon last week. He was so healthy. How did he die of a heart attack? Well, really, heart health, this person's heart is far more healthy than this person's, because this person's heart is undergoing repeated stressors and adaptations. Okay, so it's kind of like what the heart is a cardiac muscle. How do you train a muscle? You work it to maximal output and then give it bouts of rest, right? You go to the gym and work your biceps, you break it down, and you go home and rest, and you come back next week and do it again. So you create, you know, you put stress on it, make it adapt, it grows back stronger, and you grow over time. Whereas a marathoner, they put a little stress on, say for 2 to 3 minutes in the race, and then just coasted from there. So the actual demand on the heart and the variability, so the variability is from lowest heart rate to peak heart rate. The more we ask for variability or put demand on the heart, the healthier it is, the better it can adapt. So if you got one of those devices and through your day, I mean, you can do second to second, minute to minute, and it's doing things like, you know, through your day, it'll look like different things like that. But it'll average it over the time and show you, you know, your heart rate variability was here, whereas, you know, someone else's was here. This person's got a healthier cardiovascular system and probably, you know, a better, more balanced autonomic nervous system than this person does. Does that make sense?
Everything but for the big circle and small circle.
But for the what?
Everything I followed you, but for the big and the small circle. I lost you there for a second.
Oh, yeah. So I was just saying, so there's certain apps with your iPhone. I used to use one called RestWise. I don't know if it's still around. It's been years, but I would wake up, put my thumb over the camera, and it tells me my HRV in the morning. And if my HRV was 70, I need to take it easy that day because I didn't recover well. If it was 91, you know, I'm doing better and I can go hard on my workout that day. Make sense? So this was my average HRV over the last 24 hours, say, compared to the day before. So I was better there than here. Makes sense? Or more recovered this day than this day.
Wonderful. No, this is great. I'm glad you explained this way because I knew the numbers. I didn't know the science behind that. So that's
yeah. And so this is heart rate variability, right? So obviously heart, cardiovascular system is involved. but so is what's called the autonomic nervous system. Okay, and the autonomic nervous system is made up of your sympathetic nervous system, or your parasympathetic nervous system. Whoop. So SNS and PNS. So sympathetics, just think stress. That's that's the fight or flight response. Hard to write with a mouse, sorry. And PNS, think vagus, which is that rest and digest portion of things. Okay, and so you could also look at it as bicep on this side, just metaphorically. I look at it as bicep over here and tricep over here. So I can't flex my bicep and my tricep at the same time, right? I'm in one or the other. Okay, same idea is if you're ultra stressed, if you're always bicep, stress, fight or flight, well then you're not tricep, right? If you're tricep, well then you're rest and digest, you're not bicep, okay? And there's always a little bit of both going on because there's homeostatic mechanisms, but if you think about health and disease, people will get biased one way or the other. So we don't want to be consistently swung one way or the other, but our society, most people tend to be stuck or more biased towards a bicep type response or that stress type response, which stress is supposed to be short term, mobilize, break us down in the short term to liberate fuel so we can run or fight a real tiger. Okay, so that response takes stored sugar from your muscles and liver, dumps it in the blood so you have fuel to run or fight. Suppresses the immune system because a white cell won't kill a tiger for you. Suppresses sex hormones because reproducing when a tiger's chasing you doesn't lead to survival. Suppresses thyroid because metabolic rate doesn't matter if you're dead in 15 minutes. You won't memorize a grocery list well because you're focused on where's the exit, right? 15 minutes later, if you're alive, then you outran it or you killed that tiger, you should be calming back down and going back to picking berries and tubers, going back to tricep or parasympathetic. Okay, but in our society, we're always bicep or stressed 24/7, and there's no real tigers. Okay, it's just work or relationships or finances or CNN or whatever. Okay, so 24/7 breaks us down, leads to heart disease and neurodegeneration and pain and all kinds of stuff. So we don't want it consistently. We want it for acute. That's a real tiger. I need to survive. I'll break myself down to do that because I know if I survive in 15 minutes, I've either killed it or outran it, and I can calm back down and go back to healing, rest, and digesting. Make sense? So why does that matter for heart rate variability? Sorry, it's a long way over to it, but heart rate variability, if you take your pulse, okay, the hard pulse is the sympathetics, the relaxation is the parasympathetics. If you breathe, the inhale is sympathetic, the exhale is parasympathetic. So the autonomic nervous system is this combination of go, no go, or go, stop, right? Or sympathetic, parasympathetic. So when you meditate, what do? You calm down and you try and feel your heartbeat in your fingers, or you focus on inhale 4, exhale 8, right? It's always a 1-to-2 ratio because the inhale is the stress, the exhale is the rest and relax, the parasympathetic. So we want to get that parasympathetic side of the autonomic stimulated because our society lives too sympathetic. And if we're sympathetic, we're going to have poor heart rate variability, and we're going to be set up for poor performance, poor health. The more time we can spend in parasympathetic, the more variability we have, the healthier we are. And over the long term, the better the longevity. Did that all make sense?
Well, I was wondering, Dr. Arbus, if someone like me who doesn't yet do interval training or the marathon, I would think, with how I'm following you, that if my HRV was high, that would mean I was stressed, coming in and out of stress a lot. But am I not thinking of it correctly?
No, a high HRV is you are a high HRV is you are stimulating it somehow so that you are adapting properly.
Okay.
Okay, so if you have, I'm sorry.
Back and forth. If I was coming back and forth, maybe I was stressed, but I was also resting. That would constitute the high HRV.
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
Yeah, so the HRV, what we're looking at, so let me show it to you this way. Okay, so if we call this is 1 and this is 2. Which one's healthy? Katie?
I would think you'd say the 2.
What would you say?
Well, I would say the 2 based on what you said, but I just, I don't think I'm really ever working my heart rate with exercise yet. So I would think if my heart rate got to that point, it's because of all the stress I'm under, which we know I am under a lot. I'm trying to modify or trying to deal with that. So I'm thinking, how would I know if my heart rate variability was good?
So you're correct in that 2 is the healthy one, because the excursion from the mean is health. Okay, so the larger you're going up and down, right? That's a larger absolute change. The heart rate's having to adapt back to center, say, from that. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Versus if you only ever do this, that's not a very healthy heart. It hasn't been challenged much.
Okay.
Makes sense? So then the heart rate variability is relative to your level of health, so to speak, or physical activity as well. So like, this, let me undo that last line I drew. So this one, number 1 right here, might be Niraj walking up stairs. Okay. Number 2 might be you walking upstairs. Right. And I'm not knocking you. I'm just saying, right. It's relative to the fitness level of the person and everything else going on. So, if you walking upstairs gives you number 2, you definitely shouldn't be running a marathon or doing interval training at this point, right? Because that would just kill you, figuratively, right. But and maybe literally over time, right? Because you don't want to go from 0 to hero, right? The whole couch to 5K thing. It's like, yeah, that's a good idea, but maybe not, depending on the person. So if the stairs make you this way, you want to do stairs until you look like number 1 doing stairs, right? And then that would be a way for you to say, okay, I'm ready to up the intensity and progress the challenge. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So this really is more about my health with exercise, not so much about my stress level.
Oh, it's your whole picture.
Okay.
This is not exercise only, or I mean, it is always stress related, because everything we do is a stressor on some level, whether it's distress, which would be bad stress, or eustress, which is good stress, right? We're adapting to everything. So yes, your say stress balance is always related here. But the exercise is the best way for us to communicate it. And really the exercise is the best way to establish it, right? So if you're highly stressed, someone who doesn't exercise and is always stressed is at a higher risk of a heart attack than someone who exercises appropriately and is highly stressed, right? So if you and I have the same level of stress, you're not exercising for whatever reason, and I'm doing interval training, the likelihood is I've got a healthier and more robust system to deal with the same exact high stress that we're both under. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.